Sure. So the slow internet, I think it's similar trend to what the food what's happening with the food with the slow food. It means that creating products that are generally taking care of ourselves, really respect our attention, respect our user privacy, and are things that we can trust. Because if we're going to have our phones all day long, using applications all day long, we'd rather have applications that we can trust and behaviors that we can trust. And I think it's a whole next direction that the internet is going to do. It's going to split. You're going to have the main companies, the Google and the Facebook are going to be like the McDonald's of the mind, and on the other side you're going to have highly curated, smaller companies and products that will become slow product and will be very successful amongst people who want a different experience of the internet.
So it's going to be like a movement, slow internet.
I think slow internet is already a movement. I mean, the slow movement is something that's happening in many different fields. That is basically acceleration of the world as a concept. Is interesting, but in practice, the world is not ready for such an acceleration. People want to slow down. People want to spend time living their lives, not going through narrative that have been written by other people. And that's, I think technology is a big part of this now, because our phones dictating basically our schedules, our life, our intent.
Wat een super volle dag. Ik was vergeten hoe gaaf ik dit altijd vind, dit events. En wij zijn verslaglegger, foto's maken, video's maken. Ik geniet er altijd enorm van. Deadlines die op mijn deur kloppen, maar toch dit is super gaaf. Blij dat ik erbij ben. Ik zit nu in een heel klein hoekje in een grote zaal, straks het feest verder gaat. Maar kijk, ik heb hier stroom, telefoon, tablet, zodra ik deze kamer moet allemaal worden opgeladen. Dus het moet allemaal gebruikt in een ruimte waar geen stroom was en stroomgebrek. Ik ga verder. So I'm here again. I can't say my friend, but we know each other. That's better.
Oh, we can say we're friends.
We spoke 3 years ago.
Yeah.
At an event in the Netherlands, and she gave me a book, Web of Influence. And a new book is coming out when?
So it's the second edition of that one, and it's coming out, I think, in April 2017. But most of it is actually new, which is good, I guess, for the readers.
Yeah, you just need to buy the new book. That's the conclusion, right?
Yeah, sorry.
You just did a talk at Next, and one of the points that was, that triggered me, was interesting, was, of course the whole talk was interesting, but that triggered me was the dopamine loop.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
So, well, I'll explain what the dopamine loop is.
Right.
So basically there's, we all know that we have neurochemicals in the brain, and dopamine is one of the chemicals associated with things like thrill-seeking, sensation-seeking, and reward. And when we get stimulated with dopamine hits, we can end up becoming addicted to that kind of behavior. Well, addiction is maybe a strong word, but so for instance, every time you get a notification, you think you might get a reward. It's going to be small, it's going to be unpredictable, and this is known as a variable ratio of reinforcement. So if you have that set up, like you do on Twitter or Facebook or in your email inbox, people are much more likely, all of us included, to keep going back into that app or that platform to find that little reward, but it's never satisfying enough. So we keep doing it, and it's the same reason why many of us will just completely sort of lose 3 hours information seeking, because it hits up that same system.
And you said addiction is a strong word, but I don't think so. It pretty much describes it.
Well, I think if it's a system in which you're kind of going out of your way to hide the behavior or to engage in that behavior when it's having detrimental effects to the rest of your life, that's kind of a very broad psychological definition of addiction. So if it's starting to harm your interactions, your relationships, your well-being, and some could argue that it is, for some of us it is, then there is a potential that it's addictive and problematic.
Yeah, there was just a song on stage, it was Beaches.
Oh yeah.
And he talks about his friend who was an hour in the bar, and he just didn't talk with anybody, he just looked at the phone all the time. So that sounds like an addiction to me.
Yeah, and I think also there are other complexities to this situation, which is kind of, we don't want to feel alone, we don't want to feel discomfort, we don't feel bored, and so I think it's not just about the reward, it's also about an alleviation of uncomfortable feelings. So if you can stay with the discomfort and the boredom and meet someone's eyes and make a new friend, it's going to be very rewarding, but it requires greater risk. So many of us decide to avoid that.
Right. So the dopamine loop can be used and misused.
I think so. I think there's always a question when you're talking about psychological principles and these underlying kind of dynamics, I suppose, that at play as to how we're using them. So if it serves the customer and it serves the business, that's mutual benefit, it's win-win. You're facilitating a better experience. I'd say that that's persuasion, and that's a good use of these principles. At the other end is coercion and sort of persuasion when it tips into the darker side, so manipulative, covert practices. So if it doesn't serve your customer and it serves your bottom line, don't advise you do it.
Goedemorgen, goedemorgen. De dag is weer begonnen. Dag 2 van de next. Ik sta in de parkeergarage. We hebben tot 12 uur, want dan moeten we echt vertrekken. Ik ben namelijk onderweg naar stoppen voor een belafspraak van een half uur. Dan moet ik een Raststad, een parkeerplaats vinden die in ieder geval wifi heeft. Want ik ga via Skype. En ik moet om 5 uur. 5 uur moet ik toch thuis zijn. Dus het is wat spannend. Ik moet zeker 12 uur vertrekken. Ik sta goed dicht bij de locatie. Vanuit hier gelijk weg. Ik heb zin in een dag. Met een aantal goede presentaties waar we beginnen. Om 9 uur begint het.
Be activated in an ethical way. Is it ever ethical to get people to respond in a way that's mostly beyond their control? That's my question.
Cool, thank you. Warm welcome. Good that you're here. Thank you. Secondly, we have you around William Boabin.
And at Vitra, we provide a lot of great spaces dedicated to our customer. Vitra is that what you make out of Vitra. Vitra is not green or blue or big or small. Vitra is that what you make out of it. And that are these collages of our customer. That is on this Swiss sport brand for sport shoes. That is Adidas in Herzogenaurach in the new office called Pitch, where they test a lot of offered settings for the new campus. And that is a traditional Bavarian company with the average age around 45 years. Believe me,